So I'm sitting here. It's currently 2:13 in the afternoon Australian time. Smackdown's been off the air for 2 hours and 13 minutes, and I've posted the review and whatnot, and I've been doing some thinking about the state of the show. Now, not just SmackDown, this is Raw, NXT, and SmackDown. So I touched on this in the Elitist Effect, but really this is going to be more of a dedicated kind of WWE's Unwatchable kind of rant, because we're now getting 3 hours of trash on Monday, 2 hours of trash on Wednesday, and 2 hours of trash on Friday. It's downright excruciating. I mean, as someone who watches a lot of it, it's just there's so many words to use, or phrases to use: soul destroying, depleting, depressing, excruciating, nauseating, boring, bland, lifeless, redundant. You get my picture, yeah? A bunch of these words are fairly descriptive and describe how I and so many viewers feel watching these shows. Because genuinely, WWE gives you, the viewer, absolutely nothing to care, because I've been over this countless times. The shows are written for an audience of one. Vince McMahon writes the shows to please himself, and one of the main examples I look at when it comes to this is Otis in the main event picture. So we saw last night, well, as of when I put this video out, last night, for most of you, we saw Otis as basically the primary main act on SmackDown. He opened the show with a Miz TV. He was the main point in that segment. He had about 3 backstage segments, one with Mandy, one with Braun, and I think there was an interview in there or something. And then the main event tag match was Otis and Braun Strowman versus Miz and Morrison. So you've got Otis, who is a walking GIF. That's what Otis is. Otis, what he is good for is giving me Twitter GIFs to make my tweets more entertaining. That's what Otis is good for. And you've got that guy as Mr. Money in the Bank, as like the main act on SmackDown, okay? Wrestling with Heat made this point in his SmackDown review, and God, I'm gonna have to echo this, and massive shout out to you. He made this awesome point. WWE, even in this last few years, look at where they were 4-5 years ago with the top guys. Cena was kind of on the way out, but Cena was still a top guy. AJ Styles was a top guy. Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins was a top guy. So you've got those types. Now, what do we have on SmackDown? We've got Otis, this walking GIF, and we have Braun Strowman, a white trash redneck hick, as the Universal Champion. Okay, that's what we've got to look forward to on SmackDown. That's the main event picture on SmackDown. And the rest of the show is just an illogical, mind-numbing mess. That's the best way to describe SmackDown. Literally, nothing gets produced, nothing gets furthered. If you miss one SmackDown, you miss nothing. You can literally watch 2 minutes of my review and have a full understanding of everything that happened, because it's just 2 hours of nothing. So that's SmackDown. Dare I even start on Monday Night Raw? I mean, where do you begin with Monday Night Raw? Whether it's the Street Profits playing basketball with the Viking Raiders, whether it's carpool karaoke with the Viking Raiders, whether it's the immense illogical booking, like, where do I even begin? The women's division's terrible. There's 2 tag teams on Raw. I mean, Lashley's all of a sudden dominant, but then he's losing to Humberto Carrillo and getting himself disqualified in a gauntlet match, and Jinder Mahal's now here, and you've got Nia Jax injuring people, and the main event scene is now Randy Orton and Edge, who are fighting again over basically nothing. That feud was resolved at Mania, now it's back. So you've got 3 hours of Monday Night Raw every week where basically nothing's happening. I mean, let's be honest, this Becky Lynch pregnancy announcement was a big notable talking point, but that was like a blue moon announcement. Becky isn't going to get pregnant every 3 weeks, at least you hope not. But like, that was like a one-off major notable thing. And outside of that, Raw was awful. Raw was so bad. So much filler crap. Ricochet, Cedric Alexander, and R-Truth versus MVP, Shane Thorne and Brendan Vink. Who cares? It's just painful. And I'm nearly 5 minutes into the video, and I haven't mentioned one of the main factors in this whole thing. There are no crowds. Okay, I've made a whole couple of videos about how having no crowds is brutal and insufferable. But really, I need to talk about it some more. Having no crowds makes these already lifeless, painful, uncreative shows even harder to watch. Seriously, having no audience there, at least if there's an audience, the performers can play off to something. But there's no audience. And we see that with NXT primarily, okay? Raw and SmackDown suck as it is. Okay, those shows have been terrible for the last... God, take it... I mean, it's really subjective as far as how bad they've been. I mean, SmackDown ever since 2017 when Jinder became champion, that's been awful. So that's 3 years of horrible SmackDown shows. Raw, I can't remember the honest last time Raw was, like, consistently good. Personally, I'd say beginning of 2014 I enjoyed Raw. And some people like 2016 Raw, but really that was a boring show. Kevin Owens and Jericho versus Seth Rollins every week. That wasn't a good kind of time period for Raw. So really, Raw hasn't been good in over 6 years. Especially these last 4 years have been horrible for Raw. At the moment, Raw and SmackDown are both brutal, but without audiences, it's basically the same because Raw and SmackDown crowds never make noise anyway. But really, it's NXT that's being hit the hardest by the lack of the crowd. Okay, NXT is going through the motions to a level which it's kind of unnerving. If we're being honest, you watch NXT and you think to yourself, these shows are really, really bad now. And it made me think that maybe NXT all along, granted, they were doing, really, really good, like, in-ring matches and there was some good storylines, but really what made NXT so good was the Full Sail crowd. It's becoming clearer and clearer as each week goes by that the Full Sail crowd made NXT. Because without a crowd, NXT is what all the anti-smarks have said it is for years. It's a bunch of midgets for the most part, outside of Keith Lee and Damian Priest pretty much. It's a bunch of midgets fighting in what feels like a garage, because when it's a pitch black audience, you feel like you're watching garage wrestling. So that's NXT. And plus, Triple H, Shawn, Road Dogg, the creative team, I mean, they've just gone to autopilot themselves. Literally, outside of Tommaso Ciampa and Killian, what's his name, Karrion Kross, there's nothing to really look forward to. Because anything they're trying to do, whether that be what Finn Balor's doing, Gargano versus Keith Lee now, Gargano being a simp, like the Cruiserweight tournament, the women, everything's just so lifeless. There's no reason to care. So we're looking at a pro wrestling picture with Monday nights as 3 hours of painful, just excruciating nothing TV for 3 hours each week on Mondays. And then 2 nights later, you've got a Wednesday night NXT show, which for a couple of years was like the highlight of the week as far as WWE. Now, I don't even want to watch NXT. It's getting to a point where you have to kind of force me to watch it. Like, genuinely, you have to pay me to watch NXT. That's how little it is as far as interest-wise. Like, they're not doing anything to create buzz in NXT. Then you've got Friday Night SmackDown, which, as I mentioned, the main event scene is a walking GIF in Otis, Mr. Oh Yeah! And then Braun Strowman, the white trash redneck hick, who all of his promos are, get these hats! That's every Braun promo. So, that is your WWE picture in mid-May 2020, in a time period where uncertainty is aplenty with the pandemic, ratings are the worst they've ever been, NXT is barely drawing 600,000 viewers per week, okay, and we know that probably about 400,000 plus of them are just 50-plus-year-olds, so NXT, as far as an audience, is drawing terribly. Raw is getting the worst ratings in the history of the 27 years of the show, outside of the Becky Lynch pregnancy announcement last Monday, which drew viewership purely because Orton, Edge, and Becky were announced for the post-Money in the Bank show. So there was a slight bump. They couldn't even hit 2 million there. So we're about to see Raw ratings go from 1.7 to 1.6, 1.5 to 1.4. And before you know it, we'll be getting Jinder Mahal versus Drew McIntyre in the build-up to whatever pay-per-view they have in July. And we'll be looking at the Raw ratings and saying, oh my god, Raw drew a 1.374 million viewer number for the July whatever episode. That's the predicament we're about to be in. Because, my god, I said this the other day, but coming out of WrestleMania, I was pretty nervous for this kind of time period because WWE, with them still putting on shows, they could easily just, they could just go through the motions altogether, more than they already do. I've been adamant that WWE's been quote-unquote going through the motions and just collecting their payments from Fox, NBC, and USA Network for years, but you're telling me that when they're putting the shows in front of no one? They're going through the motions to a point where I don't think I've ever seen it. The little amount of effort that's being put in is alarming to watch. Just watching Raw, SmackDown, NXT makes me want to do another one of these what if I took over the WWE videos, like a part 2, because, my God, how little effort is this company going to put in? I swear, the creative meetings, I would love to be a fly on the wall in one of these creative meetings. I really would. I really, really, really would. I don't know what gets said in there. It's probably the creative meeting. They'd probably sit down in the production meeting. Vince is probably like, we got any ideas? And then Bruce is probably like, Vince, I love you. And Kevin Dunn's like, I agree, Bruce. I love you too. That's probably what the creative meeting is. So you've got a bunch of like 45 creative writers. None of them are having any ideas because they're all too scared of Vince. Vince, at what, 74, 75? He's probably just sat there thinking, damn it, I'll book it all. I'll book the show, damn it. And as a result, we're getting Monday, Friday, puke-inducing garbage, and hell, probably Vince is booking NXT at the moment, because there's no way the Triple H of 2018, 2019 is writing this current NXT. This current NXT is just painful. There's no life going to NXT, there's no life going to Raw, SmackDown, all of it. Okay, so that's the rant, that's my first week of build to Backlash post Money in the Bank. That's my kind of thoughts and opinions. This is just a bonus video for your Sunday. I could add a bunch of pictures into this, but I think this photo of Otis looking like the Hobbit, I think that's a pretty good photo to use. So yeah, that's been the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. Be sure to like, comment, and sub. I just need to get these feelings expressed because, my God, dude. If it wasn't for AEW at the moment, I don't know where I'd be as far as pro wrestling kind of fandom. Weeks like this, as far as how bad the content's been this past week, is why I flat out stopped watching for over 2 years. From 2017, when Jinder won, through 2019. Stuff like this makes me, weeks like this make me regret watching the show again. So, anyway, if you enjoyed, like, comment, sub, you guys know the drill. See ya.